Hello, my friends. How are you? Sean Ferrick here for Who Culture, and it's lovely to see you again. I thought it's been a while. Do you know what I'll do? I'll jump in and rank the doctors. Because, I wouldn't want to be doing anything like, controversial for my first video in a while. Spare a thought for poor Danny, who has to try and edit all of this into some sort of thing that works. Let's jump to it. When we're ranking any of the doctors, there's always going to be some subjective feelings going on, and there's going to be objective reasoning as well. So if your favorite happens to be midway along this list, please don't fret. We are not saying any of the doctors are bad or, whatever in this one. We are, however, going to not count Joe Martin's Fugitive Doctor or John Hurt's War Doctor, just because we frankly weren't sure where to put them. Yes, technically the War Doctor is the 9th Doctor, but then also we had so much more time with Christopher Eccleston. So what we're going to say is both Doctors absolutely fantastic. I have to say, I think generally across the board, everyone just knows they are brilliant. John Hurt the man was incredible, and Joe Martin just smashed it as the Fugitive Doctor. And to keep this list somewhat succinct, I'm now 17 minutes into explaining this, but to keep it somewhat succinct, we've decided that we're going to give her an honorable mention. She is fantastic, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the power of the Doctor is not the last time that we saw her. Now, with that said, I'm Sean Ferrick for Who Culture, and here are all of the Doctors ranked. Number 13, the 6th Doctor. Now, it has become almost commonplace to go, 6 was the worst, was it? And although, yes, I am well aware we have Colin Baker at the bottom of this list, please bear with me, right? Baker came into the role when Doctor Who was in a period of kind of cooling off. A lot of the goodwill that had been in the BBC with Doctors 1 to 5 was starting to leave. Now, Michael Grade, who was the controller of BBC at the time, was one of the people most directly responsible for this. He was not a fan of Doctor Who at all. There's the usual let's change things up when Baker takes on the part, because obviously we were taken over from Peter Davison, who was a younger Doctor. He was kind of more friendly. We open up with the 6th Doctor choking out Perry. Not a great introduction. There was a long hiatus then, and the writing change to try and soften the 6th Doctor up a little bit, but then also it took the wind out of the sails. Now, as we know, things did not end well. Colin Baker was fired without being given the option to film a full final season. He did say that he would come and do a regeneration story, but basically he was vetoed on this, which is why he chose not to appear in his regeneration story, and it's Sylvester McCoy in a wig. The years have been much kinder, and really where the 6th Doctor has, done the best is in the Big Finish audio dramas, where I'm delighted to say they did redo the regeneration story so that he got a proper send-off. So while yes, the 6th Doctor is at the bottom of this list, he's not at the bottom of our hearts. Number 12, the 2nd Doctor. Patrick Troughton's 2nd Doctor was the first regeneration of the Doctor as we saw it. This was something where, there was a famous anecdotal story that says William Hartnell said the only person who could take over for me is Patrick Troughton. And quite frankly, he did a great job. With his Beatles-inspired haircut and playing the recorder and wearing that really heavy, fur coat, he really struck a different chord, but was still super popular in his own way. He still has some of the most interesting stories, and his story with the Cybermen is a seminal story. And quite frankly, it's still bloody scary. The War Games concluded with the forced regeneration of this Doctor, and that's something that sort of miffed people a little bit. Also because while yes, we do see him swirling off into the distance, we don't actually see the moment of regeneration. Fun fact, all the way back at this point was when the idea that the Doctor could choose their own regenerations was actually first floated. So this idea, Capaldi, why did I choose this face, or the 14th Doctor coming back, it's been there since 1969. Number 11, the 1st Doctor. Now, we have 3 different actors have played the 1st Doctor. So first of all, let's talk about the man who started it all, William Hartnell. From Unearthly Child right the way through until the 10th Planet, he plays the Doctor as something of a bit of a wizard, of a, space curmudgeonly granddad, and he set the tone for what would come. Now obviously it's changed many times over, but he was the one who got it all going. He played the role from 63 to 66 and would return for a cameo in the 10th anniversary of Doctor Who. His health was quite poor at that point, so it's a very short cameo, but still it is funny to see the three Doctors together at that point.
Oh, so you're my replacements, a dandy and a clown.
He passed away before the next anniversary special was put together, and for the 5 Doctors, Richard Herndl took over the part. Now, it's the only time he played him, but it was fun, and he does what he can by both imitating and doing a new version of the William Hartnell creation. But of course, most recently, we've seen David Bradley taking over the part of the first Doctor. It's been a hoot to see this first Doctor compared with the most recent Doctors. The first Doctor, while possibly not the most popular of them all, crucial in getting things going when it comes to Doctor Who. And if it had failed, if Hartnell had not delivered what he did, we would not be talking about this show 60 years later. Number 10, the third Doctor. Jon Pertwee was a horse of a different colour. Like when he came in, we went from crotchety old grandad to Beatles, little bit of a dandy clown. No, a bit of a clown. Jon Pertwee's the dandy. It was just inspired. Also, this was the kind of rock'em sock'em Doctor. You know, we had Venusian Aikido, we had the snake tattoo on the arm. Now, quite frankly, he was a lot of fun. Now, he was trapped on Earth for most of his tenure, so instead of the TARDIS, we often got Bessie. And his regeneration is one of the more bizarre ones. Seriously, watch the clip. The Brigadier sums it up very nicely.
Thank you. That makes everything quite clear.
It was this period that introduced audiences as well to one of, if not the most famous companion of them all, Sarah Jane Smith, and her relationship with Jon Pertwee was absolutely fantastic. This was also the period that gave us The Master. Unfortunately, it was the death of Roger Delgado that inspired Jon Pertwee to leave as well. He was so much fun in The Three Doctors, where he gets his moniker of the Dandy from the first Doctor, and of course so much fun when he returned for the 5 Doctors as well. So there you are. There's my piece on that. Number 9, the 13th Doctor. The 13th Doctor marked a massive experiment behind the scenes with Doctor Who. Jodie Whittaker taking over the reins from, up until that point, an entirely male set of actors. This was always going to raise some eyebrows. Now, I think for the most part, the storm that went on around fandoms and the usual, I do think it was completely overhyped. Jodie is engaging in the role, she is fun in the role, she is emotional in the role, and it's something that I think serves the character very, very well. When you have anything that runs for as long as Doctor Who does, you have to change things up to keep it from getting stale. You just do. I mean, look at Star Trek. It's changed things up as well, nearly the same amount of time. Unfortunately, I do think that a lot of her era has been mired in, this weird controversy and, those crying man babies who say the Doctor can't be a woman. And as you can tell from my voice, I don't really have an awful lot of time for that. I think time will be kinder to the 13th Doctor. I think there was a lot of very interesting ideas. Maybe they didn't pan out as well as they could have. The Timeless Child. As of the recording of this, it remains to be seen what, if anything, the franchise is going to do with that information going forward. Jodie came on and made her stamp on the character. The era in which she appeared is what's got people's chins wagging. So I look forward to the day when we can talk about the 13th Doctor and the 13th Doctor's era in separate breaths. For the moment, I think she did an absolutely bang-up job. I enjoyed watching her episodes as much as I've enjoyed maybe so many others. Number 8, the 5th Doctor. At the time, Peter Davison was the youngest actor to take on the role of the Doctor, and this was seen as a big shake-up because you just had 10 years of Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor, who was, still today, if you say picture Doctor Who, the scarf is what a lot of people go to. But the cricket uniform with the decorative celery is also something that is baked into people's minds. This younger Doctor had to walk the line of showing the age of the ones who've gone before him with bringing a youthful energy to try and reinvigorate the series. We had such companions as Tegan, we had Perry was introduced, we had beloved fan favourite Adric. Now, the legacy of the 5th Doctor is a hoot, because the Doctor is, of course, the father of the Doctor's daughter, but also he is the grandfather of the 10th Doctor's children and the father-in-law of the Doctor. So Christmas is very confusing at the Davison Tennant household, but that's fine, just keep a flowchart together. But with that joking aside for the moment, his reappearance in The Power of the Doctor and seeing his reunion with Tegan, even though I wasn't watching Doctor Who during their tenure because of the problem of I hadn't been born yet, even I get that feeling right there, because sometimes a relationship just works. Number 7, the 7th Doctor. The 7th Doctor's era, this was probably a turbulent one. Not maybe as turbulent in terms of like Colin Baker obviously getting fired, but this did lead to the cancellation of Doctor Who. And that's not on Sylvester McCoy. This was an era that definitely saw an increase in darker tendency from the Doctor. Some of the Dalek stories as well are like, they're pretty serious. Like, although this would see the cancellation of Doctor Who, and that would be the end of it until the movie in 1996, there is still some gold in there. And much like our previous entry here, seeing the 7th Doctor interacting with Ace again in The Power of the Doctor, now that worked. Sophie Aldred and Sylvester McCoy make a brilliant team together. I would love to see more of the two of them. Number 6, the 12th Doctor. If you had asked me a few years ago where would I rank the 12th Doctor, I actually probably would have had them quite lower down the list, and that's because I'm an idiot. No, the reason for that being, I think when everyone has, you know, their image right in their head, seeing any kind of change really throws that off. We went from the youngest person to play the Doctor, which was Matt Smith playing the 11th Doctor, to one of the oldest, and certainly the oldest since the revival. And yet, much as we said earlier with how I think time will be kind to Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, time has been kind to Peter Capaldi's Doctor. And going back and rewatching some of these episodes, and we see some of the best Doctor Who that has been released since 2005. One of the best episodes of Doctor Who overall, which is Heaven Sent, is effectively a one-hander. Peter Capaldi carries that entire episode, and he is incredible. This was a story as well, this entire run, that really played on the why did the Doctor choose to appear this way? And of course, Missy. So even though, yes, I do think the storyline with Clara was dragged out a little bit too long, what we got with the Doctor and Missy more than makes up for that. Also, let's not sleep on Bill or Nardole, who are both very effective companions in the 10th season, and I think somewhere, if you listen carefully, Ellie is still crying, thinking about the husbands of River Song. Peter Capaldi came in, made it his own, and he stepped away at, I think, the right time. It remains to be seen as of the recording of this video whether we will get a cameo in the 60th. I hope we will, because I think he's bloody brilliant. Number 5, the 8th Doctor. This one was a bit of a surprise to me because, I tell you why, in 2005, I was only just getting to know Doctor Who. So I started with Eccleston, like many people, but I had seen the movie. You couldn't grow up in the Ferrick household and not have seen Doctor Who growing up. So, all right. So I knew that there was this floppy-headed person called the Doctor, but where was he gone? Now, this was before I understood the intricacies of regeneration. In 1996, the movie, which is fine, was released, which canonically showed Sylvester McCoy's 7th Doctor dying and regenerating into Paul McGann's 8th Doctor. So no, that's it. Like, you couldn't ignore that. We see a regeneration. Now it is the most melodramatic thing in the world. Who am I? You're the 8th Doctor. It wouldn't be until 2013 that we would really see on screen what happened to the 8th Doctor. And honestly, I love it. The Night of the Doctor is an incredible little episode. And you might be looking at me going like, we got a movie and a mini-sode, and you've ranked him higher than some of the other Doctors. It was Paul McGann who, in my opinion, really solidified why the Big Finish audio stories are so important. He has had a very long tenure of playing the Doctor, so that when he came back to do it on screen, it was as though he'd never stepped away. That's special. McGann's Doctor, you can see sort of the light-hearted floppiness of the movie and the darker tone of the Time War both merge together here. And there is a comedy there is a seriousness there. He carries it so well. The great missed opportunity of Doctor Who is not giving us more McGann on screen, but hey, look, we got a surprise in Power of the Doctor. Let's see what's coming up next. Number 4, the 9th Doctor. I'm going to start by saying the fact that Christopher Eccleston only appeared in one season as the Doctor is a mistake. Now, there's all sorts of reasons going on behind the scenes for that, and it is a crying shame. It's not that I would want to sacrifice any episodes of David Tennant's tenure, but the 9th Doctor gave so much in such a small amount of time, and I think perhaps it's knowing that it ended in a kind of a darker stamp. That's what really kind of annoys me the most. Because if you look in that run, Christopher Eccleston had a hell of a job. Bring back a show that had been cancelled with the budget of about 20 quid and, you know, wrestle with a mannequin's arm and yet try and also convey the fact that you're the last of your species. Yeah, I couldn't do it. Some episodes in his tenure, Dalek for example, really show the depths to which the Doctor had sunk during the Time War and the pain and the horror that the Doctor went through. The fact that the Dalek says, you would make a good Dalek, and you kind of agree with the Dalek, gives you an idea of just how much range Eccleston could show, while also then dancing with Rose in a later episode. Obviously, for years, we were stuck with, look, that was the end of it. We were never getting more Eccleston. He didn't appear in The Day of the Doctor in 2013. And then, relatively recently, shocked us all by returning and appearing in the Big Finish audio dramas. Now, look, this might mean the glorious return of the 9th Doctor, or it might mean we're keeping it audio. We don't know. All I can say is that the 9th Doctor left an indelible mark on the franchise, and it would be a crying shame if we never saw him on screen again. Number 3, the 10th Doctor. There's absolutely no denying the impact that David Tennant had on Doctor Who and pop culture as a whole. If you think back to 2009, you couldn't go 3 seconds without seeing David Tennant pop up in something as the Doctor, and it was a glorious, glorious time. Of course, there's the Meta-Crisis Doctor, there's going to be the 14th Doctor, so, I mean, we may well be discussing way more about David Tennant going forward. For his run as the 10th Doctor, this is really when Doctor Who got big. Now, it would continue to again, but this is when it really got audience, got new viewers, and it became cool. Not that Doctor Who wasn't cool before, but you know, we're all geeks here. His run during the 2nd season marked some fantastic episodes that sometimes fly under the radar. Girl in the Fireplace, for example. The 3rd season gave us Blink, The Family of Blood. We had, of course, The Sound of Drums with John Simm's amazing take on The Master. And the 4th season gave us Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, and I'm still crying inside. I don't want to go. He returned, of course, for The Day of the Doctor in 2013, and it works. But it's fun as well to see how the character developed. So David Tennant, again, young performer, really brings that energy to it, to the fact where sometimes it's tiring. One of the jokes, like, you know, kind of like, what will you see in Doctor Who? A quarry and running. There was a lot of running in the 10th Doctor's time. We had some fantastic companions, and of course, we're going to see one of them return in the 60th anniversary, which is, of course, Catherine Tate's Donna Noble. Number 2, the 4th Doctor. There's a funny thing at the moment where we have so many people are becoming fans of Doctor Who now that they know the image of the long scarf, but may not have actually watched an awful lot of Tom Baker's tenure as the Doctor. And I implore anyone who hasn't, go and watch. There is a reason Tom Baker is often voted the most popular Doctor of them all. His booming voice, for one, is iconic. His love of jelly babies, let's not forget that.
Is there anything I can get for you, sir?
Yes, a jelly baby.
His relationship with Sarah Jane, with Harry, with Romana. Basically, this tenure has it all. There's also, of course, one of the seminal Doctor Who serials, which is Genesis of the Daleks. It gives us Davros, but also it directly addresses the question, why doesn't the Doctor just go back to Skaro and stop the Daleks from being made? We've done that story. It's bloody brilliant. He was in the role the longest, and in fact he only left when situations behind the scenes became untenable. He really did not get on with the showrunner at the time. And obviously it's a shame, but you don't want someone to stay when they're clearly not enjoying themselves anymore. And that's where it was headed. We then get the great scene where he falls off a tower. All right, not the most shocking of regenerations, but sure, listen. It's grand. Tom Baker didn't return for the 5 Doctors, which was of course a shame, but he felt too little time had gone by since he had left, to come back for this anniversary special. He did, however, return as the curator in 2013 for the Day of the Doctor. Now, while technically that's not the 4th Doctor, I mean, come on, it's a bit incredible. He is fun, energetic, a little bit brash, sometimes a bit rude. He's all of the above and none of the above. I thoroughly recommend, if you haven't, go and check out the 4th Doctor's tenure. You will not regret it. Number 1, the 11th Doctor. A lot of the time here at Who Culture Towers, we have a bit of a chat as to, who our favorites are. And, we tend to gravitate to the ones that we kind of grew up with and we watched. And the 11th Doctor was my first, beginning to finish Doctor. Because when I was getting into Doctor Who, I had drifted for a couple of years, so David Tennant was already the Doctor. Whereas I watched 10 into 11, and I watched 11 into 12. And that period marked some of the best writing I've ever enjoyed on television. Matt Smith had a horrendously difficult job. Play an old man, but be young as well, will you? Also, he was taking over from one of the most popular Doctors of all time in the shape of David Tennant. This was not going to be easy. The 11th Hour, thankfully, is one of the best premiere episodes of a new Doctor overall. It plays on fairy tale. It really, really relies on Matt Smith knocking it out of the park, which thankfully he does, so that by the end of the episode, when he says, "I'm the Doctor," I believed him. His regeneration shattered me. Absolutely shattered me. And the person who was sat beside me at the time on Christmas Day knew he will back me up on this one. Raggedy Man, good night. I'm still not okay. I'm not okay. It's been 10 years. I'm not okay. He delivers in every single scene that he's in. Yes, the last run of season 7 was marked with, unfortunately, some subpar episodes because of so much work going into the 50th anniversary, but it's easy to look past that when you look at just the absolute gold that came before. So for me, the 11th Doctor is number 1. What do you think?
Hello, I'm the Doctor.
It was unfortunately the death of Roger Delgado. Patrick Troughton was the first regeneration of Doctor. Excuse me. He was so much fun when he returned for the 3 Doctor. No. Ellie is still crying thinking about the wedding of River Song. No.